Hey guys, so I have awesome news. We just found out that our YouTube channel has reached the point where I was able to become a YouTube partner, I think is what they call it. And so I will now be able to hopefully have some more control over ad placement. And I know some of the feedback I've been getting is that it can be tough if you're getting really into a video or a meditation and an ad pops up right in the middle. So as a smaller channel, I didn't have control over that, and now I do, which is going to be super exciting. So in the coming weeks, I will be working on moving where ads maybe have been placed in the past and trying to fix that. So that wouldn't be possible without all of you viewers for watching my videos and subscribing. It really has helped to grow our channel to where it is. So in kind of honor of that, I wanted to do a quick transformational, like 6 healing habits kind of tidbit video today, just to kind of go over a lot of the things that I think are super transformative and helpful in order to achieve healing and balance in our life. And as I think I've expressed on here before, I am a therapist. I have a brain retraining program. I have used brain retraining to heal a lot of my chronic health and chronic pain symptoms, but I'm also not a militant or a purist that I don't believe that brain retraining and cognitive restructuring on its own is the only key to healing. So I wanted to touch a little bit on how I think we need to approach this holistic way of viewing healing, and I am going to touch on these 6 key things. So I am going to touch on brain retraining and cognitive restructuring, CBT therapy. Time in nature is another huge one that I think is super helpful for our healing journey, meditation and mindfulness, following an anti-inflammatory lifestyle with our food, our herbs, maintaining healthy relationships and boundaries is another huge one, and then balancing movement and rest. So, as we all know, when we're embarking on this healing journey of transformation, it can be really easy, I think, to get pigeonholed into a fully Western, medicalized, victimized, over clinical diagnosis based approach, which I think so many people start off with, and then getting into this never ending cycle of doctor's appointments and medications and just being told you're not going to get better. We also can, I think, veer too far in the other direction where we are told that you only need this one magical cure on the holistic side and you'll be fine and you never have to worry about anything again. And so my key for my own personal healing journey and my life and the clients I work with is that we need a balance. We need to have evidence-based practices. We need to pave the way for positive change, and we need to use a mix of all the tools in our toolbox in order to heal. As always, ask your doctor before you try any of these things. You never know if there's anything specific to a problem that you're dealing with that you might need something a little bit different in your toolbox or to approach something in a little bit of a different way. So let's start off with the idea of brain retraining, specifically positive thinking to motivate healing and change, to rewire our brain to harness neuroplasticity. So we're going to start by just settling into a comfortable position and do a little example here of some positive thinking and brain rewiring. So if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes, take a deep breath. We're going to inhale positivity and exhale any tension or negativity. Now we are going to take a moment just to connect with our breath, connect with the present, notice anything coming up, and letting any thoughts or emotions kind of crash on the shore and then retreat. Just like waves, we don't have to hold on to them. They are constantly ebbing and flowing. And now let's take a moment to choose a positive thought or word or affirmation that resonates with you. It might be simple, like I am worthy of healing, or I am resilient or strong. And create your own, whatever feels empowering for you, in this moment. And then let's repeat that chosen affirmation either silently or out loud. I am worthy of healing. I am strong. I am resilient. Allow those words to flow through your mind and body. Focus on each word individually and the meaning it has to you. And as you repeat that affirmation over and over, imagine it becoming a part of you and embedding itself into your thoughts and beliefs. Now picture a scene in your mind related to that affirmation. Maybe we visualize ourselves when we are a version of ourselves that is vibrant and energized and engaged in an activity that we love. Maybe we're surrounded by loved ones. Maybe we picture ourselves climbing up and hiking up a big mountain and conquering our fears. And in this visualization, we want to engage our senses. We want to feel the warmth of the sun, or feeling that loved one giving us a hug, or hearing the soothing noises around us, and seeing the colors and smelling the comforting smells. And as we do this, we still are hearing that affirmation echoing in our mind. And then allow ourselves to embrace any positive emotions associated with this affirmation and the visualization as they come in. We want to fully feel that joy or gratitude or empowerment flowing through us, and maybe noticing if we associate a color with that, or a word, or anything that comes to mind, embracing that emotion and letting it fill our being. And this is just a simple exercise we can repeat every day. We want to express gratitude for any positivity that we've cultivated, and the fact that we are retraining our brain every time we practice a new affirmation, a new mindfulness exercise. We are rewiring the parts of our brain that understand how we handle our day, that process our emotions, that process our ability to stay present in that moment. So this is just a very simple introduction to what brain retraining looks like and how we cognitively can change the way we're thinking, and then in turn that will change some of the behaviors that we engage in and the outcomes that we have. The second thing I wanted to talk about is time in nature. We very often overlook this as part of our healing journey. I'm a huge believer that a lot of the illness that we have in Western society is because we are not meant to be cooped up in a house or an office all day, or staying in bed all day, and the chemicals and the microplastics and all of these things around us, they're just not natural. How do we get back to nature and our natural state of being? So one element I like to embrace is the Japanese concept of forest bathing. And they've actually done a lot of studies in Japan on how just being in nature, not even having to be hiking or not having to be gardening, just being surrounded by nature and trees and fresh air, and immersing yourself specifically in a forest environment, is just so healthy and can, reduce symptoms of depression. There was a review in the Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health saying that forest bathing is associated with a reduction in depression symptoms. There's this presence of phytonicides, which I talk about in my course actually, and they're natural compounds that the trees release. And that is actually something that interacts with our bodies and helps with improving mood and stress reduction. We also look at the International Journal of Immunology and Pathology, and in 2007, they found that forest bathing led to a decrease in cortisol levels, which indicates a reduction in stress. And we know that stress also affects our immune system and how we're able to heal and regenerate. We also see a connection with forest bathing and individuals with fibromyalgia. And there was a study that found that forest bathing can contribute to perceived pain reduction and improvements in well-being. And this is literally just from being in the forest, from being around the trees, not actually engaging in anything further than that. So we want to focus on mindfulness and connection to nature. And this is something we can practice, I believe, a little bit at a time. I think we could start by opening our windows, getting fresh air, looking at the trees around us, maybe having houseplants in our house if we're not in a physical state where we can get out to nature often. Even if we're dealing with pain or fatigue, we can drive to a wooded area and just sit and enjoy the presence of nature. And I think the concept of forest bathing is much more practical and an easier place to start if you're dealing with chronic pain or chronic illness and you can't imagine hiking quite yet or walking through the woods. You just have to sit, engage mindfully in nature, and take on those benefits of being in nature. The next thing I wanted to touch on was meditation and mindfulness. So I wanted to just go over a couple ideas to make this super practical for your daily life. One of my favorite things is walking meditation. This is the idea that we can just mindfully practice walking, focusing on each step, focusing on the sensation of our heel, and as we roll to the ball of our foot onto our toes, and then we alternate feet. We focus on the step, we match our breath to our steps. Maybe we choose an environment where we are more able to look around us as we walk when we're so used to being glued to a phone or having to always be thinking. The idea of being able to have some movement helps some people to meditate a little more effectively, especially if you're easily distracted. There are guided meditation apps. There are awesome YouTube channels with free guided meditations. Sometimes it is a lot easier when someone is talking you through a meditation rather than feeling like you have to just sit there and figure out what to do. Prayer, gratitude journaling, anything that connects you with your spirituality or with being present in this moment, breath work, all of these things can help us to engage in more mindful presence throughout the day. And when you look at the research, meditation has been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety. It's been shown to reduce symptoms of depression, to improve mood. There is mindful-based stress reduction, which is actually a very therapeutic type of meditation that's used in a lot of hospital settings. And it's also been shown that meditation can reduce perception of pain and managing symptoms of pain. The next thing is anti-inflammatory lifestyles specifically, and now I don't like to get too far into the idea of a one-size-fits-all diet because I do think that everyone's body is so unique, everyone's microbiome is so unique. I think we get into trouble when we focus too much on this diet will cure me, this supplement will cure me. But I do think there is a general consensus that the root cause of almost all disease is stress and inflammation. And so, what can we do to explore ways to experiment with anti inflammatory diets? And again, this is dependent on you and your system and your providers and who you're working with. But figuring out what works for you, and that might be doing food intolerance testing. So many people have chronic inflammation because they're not aware they have a food intolerance and they keep eating a food that they are mildly reactive to. This might look like cutting back on pro-inflammatory foods like sugars and artificial colors and flavors and all these things that we often don't think about. Just something to consider as part of your healing is what we consume becomes a part of us, right? So when we consume these different foods, we want to be consuming things that are for our healing and for our higher good. When we consume media, when we consume relationships and conversations, that is something that turns into an energy within us. We have to be very cautious about what we're surrounding ourselves with. So another thing would be anti-inflammatory herbs. How do we maybe add some of this into our life with turmeric or ginger or green tea or rosemary, boswellia, all of these wonderful things that, as long as it's cleared by your doctor, it can be added into your life and your routine pretty easily. We know that chronic inflammation is linked to so many of these disease processes, which is why I bring it up. Again, we are focusing on lifestyle changes, positive affirmations, positive thinking, but we cannot ignore the body and the role of inflammation and poor diet or toxins around us in our world and how they do impact us. So this is something I think is important to talk about, but to have it feel individualized for yourself and using your intuition to figure out what works for you. The other thing that is often not talked about enough, especially in brain retraining programs or healing in general, is our relationships, our support network, who we're surrounding ourselves with. Now, as a therapist, sadly, I see this really often. I've actually talked to quite a few people just this week on my caseload that were having a really great week or a really great month. They hung out around the wrong person who was really triggering to them, and it set them into a spiral. We talk about this a little in some brain retraining programs. They talk about leaving the chronic illness support groups that maybe you had been in before because it can become very heavily obsessive over symptoms and medications and treatments and identifying with your diagnosis. So I think a big part of this is understanding healthy boundaries, setting clear limits on what you find acceptable in your relationships, your personal space, emotional protection, which is, boundaries shield us against emotional stress and toxicity. We want to make sure that we're retaining our autonomy and the sense of empowerment that comes with setting boundaries. And then we want to make sure that we're having supportive, emotional people around us. And sometimes that might start with getting out more and meeting new people, changing up our support system a little bit. We do know that toxic relationships do contribute, medically to stress, anxiety, depression. They can have negative physiological impact on us. So we want to work on how do we identify the people and places and things that either are keeping us sick or helping us to move towards healing. And if we struggle with this could be a great time to bring in a therapist or understanding more about codependency or boundary setting. And it's just something that's often overlooked in the healing realm. The last thing I want to touch on is finding this balance between gentle movement, exercise, moving our bodies, and rest in healing. So I think that we have all learned a lot in the last couple of years. I used to be a personal trainer. I was super active. We have been getting more and more research talking about how super high impact, super over the top cardio, over the top training can put so much stress on your body that you reach a point where it's no longer helping. There were, forget the actual name of the study, but there was a study done and they were talking about how there are marathoners that have these heart issues. And it's like, at what point do we tax our body so much that we're actually creating more stress hormones and more wear and tear on our body? So I love running. I wish I could still run as much as I used to, and I love exercise, but we need to find a balance between, we don't have to go all in on every single thing we do. And in some ways, gentle movement is actually now being found to be healthier and more sustainable than these extreme exercises that maybe we would have pushed people to do before. We know that exercise helps to release endorphins. It gives us a sense of well-being. But why don't we explore things like Tai Chi and stretching and walking and water workouts in a way that feels safe to us? I think so many people I talk to, they're like, well, I can't exercise. I'm too sick. I'm too tired. And, I get it. If you're in pain, exercise seems very daunting. I think we need to shift our concept of what movement and exercise can be. So again, I think things like Pilates, which was literally developed to help people recovering in the hospital. We look at Tai Chi, which can be practiced at all ages. It's very gentle. You can do that in a chair yoga, mindful walking. These are all things that I think we need to keep in mind if we're struggling to incorporate that movement into our day. How can we start very small, very gentle, and feel successful at the same time? To counterbalance that, the importance of rest and recovery. Sleep and rest contribute to our immune system. If you sleep less than 7 hours a night, you're actually more susceptible to illness and stress. Rest helps with pain management. There's actually a lot of times I recommend to clients that have trouble sleeping to utilize Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is a very specific type of meditation and mindfulness that was created to help veterans with PTSD. They were struggling to sleep. Doing 20 minutes of Yoga Nidra actually equates to a few hours worth of sleep when you look at how it affects your brain waves. And we are going to practice the idea also of self-compassion, and this idea that sometimes we have to allow ourselves to rest as a gift, as something that we do deserve. Sometimes I think I hear people saying like, well, I don't deserve to sleep because I didn't do enough today, or I need to keep moving, I need to keep busy. They feel like somehow they don't deserve that rest and recovery. I think it's really important to have this idea of compassion and holding space for ourselves. And it goes right back to number one on the list, which is rewiring our brain. We are setting the stage for healing. And a big part of that is feeling that we deserve to heal, that we should be holding space for ourselves. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of healing. And that ties into the relationships and the boundary setting. It ties into making healthy choices with our food and our movement, not beating ourselves up if we feel like we can't do things perfectly. So I hope this was helpful. I wanted to just kind of dive in and explore how, yes, the cognitive part is so healthy, but there's so much else that we need to be taking into consideration. And how can we deep dive a little bit more every day into all of these components for true holistic healing? Thank you again so much for always being here and watching my videos. And if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the comments below. I try my best to respond. I hope you have an amazing day full of healing, and I'll talk to you soon.